This is Nikhil, the Geeky Nomad, and welcome to my channel. Today we are in conversation with two very special personalities. First of all, we have Monty Panesar, who is ideally an Indian, but he's actually an English cricketer. He was probably one of the biggest architects of the last defeat that India had in India. I believe after 2012, the series win that England had, India has never lost a home series.
Yes.
So I think Monty Paji was one of the architects of that particular defeat that India had. He's also played 50 more than 50 tests and approximately 167 international wickets. We also have Mr. Bharat Sharma with us, who is a senior journalist. He has agreed to join us in a personal capacity. And we will just be conversing about the India-England series, which is coming up. And Bharat, what do you think is India?
Let's start with Monty Paji.
Sure. Monty Paji, what are your thoughts about the upcoming series? England is playing India after a while. They have been the ones जिन्होंने इंडिया को बहुत तंग किया है. Obviously in England तो India मतलब पिछड़ जाती है जब Indians play in England. What are your thoughts? What is just a basic overview of your thoughts in terms of how will India be able to tackle England? And also the fact कि 2012 के बाद IPL में काफी English cricketers ने खेला है, specifically the bowlers, और उनको Indian pitches के बारे में काफी अच्छी जानकारी है. And also the fact that you would want to play more spinners, because I think after you and Gramson, I don't think so England has produced a lot of good spinners. So just an overview from your end, and let's see.
Yeah, look, I think England's got the perfect preparation. They've played 2 test matches in Sri Lanka, and England shouldn't take them lightly. India shouldn't take them lightly. India, yeah, they're a good team. I think they're going to miss Ravindra Jadeja, I think India are quite lucky that England's top order is actually quite inexperienced. If they had a stronger top order like we had in 2012 with the likes of Alistair Cook, Kevin Peterson, Jonathan Trott, Ian Bell, I think England probably would have looked to win this series. I think if India lose the Test series, it'll be the end of Virat Kohli's captaincy.
That's quite a statement.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, but that's what you expect. All honesty from Paji.
Well, absolutely, because this India team is much stronger than England at the moment, and everyone's sort of questioning that maybe we should, axe Virat Kohli as a captain. Well, I tell you what, if he loses the series, they've got every right to say, look, Virat, just scoring lots of runs and let Ajinkya Rahane or someone other people to take over the captaincy. You can't expect to sort of captain the team, forever, but there'll be a time where he has to step down. And if he can't beat this England team, which is probably strong in terms of bowling, but batting is probably the weaker point. And with how they bowled in Australia, how good Ashwin is at the moment, I think India are favourites.
Paji, I had one question to ask you. What do you have to say about the rotation policy in the England team? There's a lot of talk in the UK as well as in India. A lot of star players will be here for part of the series and going back. For example, Josh Butler, he's here for the first test. He'll go back, come back for the ODIs and T20s. Does that make sense?
Well, it's I guess Indian fans must be delighted to hear Josh Butler leaving. If he was playing for the 4 test matches and so was Johnny Bairstow, I think it would be a much closer and a tighter series. And the likes of Mark Wood, who can bowl fast and quick. And we've seen how Jofra Archer has, disturbed, the Indian batsmen on Abu Dhabi pitches. Anything that once the ball gets quick, I guess, some of the batsmen showed resilience, but it's very much in favour. You look, the batting isn't, let's say, the top orders youngsters. You haven't got Joss Buttler for the next 3 test matches. Johnny Bairstow arrives after 2 test matches. It's like saying, I put this, if India were playing in early June on a green top, England would be favourites to win that. And this is the same scenario. It's a spinning wicket. India are favourites to win.
In fact, you mentioned about the inexperienced batting. Could you touch a little more upon it? Since Ashwin, you mentioned, is in probably the form of his life. How do you think the England batsmen should tackle Ashwin?
Well, I think, they should be, having a good defence going at the ball. They've got to make sure that bat is in front of the pad. You look at how Babar Azam played against Pakistan. For Pakistan and against Maharaj, where he just was lazy shot, bat and pad close together. You need that ball skids on, it hits middle leg stump, But Alistair Cook, why was he so good in India and in the subcontinent pitches? Because his defense was immaculate. He will get a big stride out, and he'll make sure that bat is in front of the pad. So the distance between the ball and the bat isn't as much, and it makes it very difficult for the spinners to get the likes of Alistair Cook out. And I think that's what they're learning at the moment. These young batsmen, and it's the other thing we haven't talked about is actually the seamers. You look in Australia, the Australian bowlers didn't get the ball to move much, and you had this Mohammad Siraj only in his second test match, and he was like moving the ball much more than the Australian bowlers. So that's another battle we haven't really talked about. I think England are kind of thinking, oh yeah, because Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad bowled really well in Sri Lanka, our seamed bowlers are going to be better than India's. They may have more experience, but they may even move the ball more than the English bowlers. And that's been the case. They've shown that, against opposition seamers. Against Australia, they've shown that India's seam bowling department is actually moving the ball more. And if that happens as well, let's say, then it's going to be a very one-sided series.
In fact, I think the first 2 tests are in Chennai and the second 2 tests are in Ahmedabad. So I think probably is going to be more spinning wickets. Would you like to touch upon that?
Well, look, we all know the red soil. The red soil pitches turn more. Wankhede, Chennai, they're both red soil pitches. They're going to turn more. They're going to probably turn sooner, maybe day 2, after day 2, even sooner than that. So I wouldn't be surprised if actually India play 3 spinners. But then the Ahmedabad pitch, apparently the soil is, you can produce whatever wicket you want, but generally speaking, it's going to be more of a skiddier wicket. Possibly not much pace on it, and it'll probably be flatter than the Chennai. So it doesn't make any sense, if you ask me. Why would you rest Johnny Bairstow in for the first 2 test matches, where he's a better player of spin than maybe some of the younger batters in the team, and actually rest him after the first 2 test matches? But they're bringing him back in Ahmedabad, which obviously I guess that's their policy. They have rotation policies, whatever, but it kind of favors India, to be honest.
Paji, I wanted to ask you about who are the 2 openers you're going to open with? Obviously, they're very inexperienced, just like the 2 spinners that you have, very inexperienced the first time in India. So what are your 2 openers? And then we'll talk about the spinners.
Well, I'm a big fan. I'm a bit old-fashioned when it comes to, picking a team. I'm like left-right combination works so well. I've seen it where seamers, getting a good rhythm, and then against the left-hand batsman, they get the line wrong. So Rory Burns, Dominic Sibley, I think they should open the batting. I think 3 should be Zach Crawley. He's an attacking, confident player. And then we've got Joe Root at 4, who's been in prolific form. So I think that's the way they should go. But there's rumours going that Ollie Pope may come back, and he could be batting at 5. And they may even just have, one spinner playing with Joss Butler at 7. I'm trying to say Moeen Ali should play, but I think it appears that they may go with a stronger batting lineup because they're a little bit worried about, do we really need to play 2 spinners or do we play the extra batter? And I think they may just go for the extra batter.
But Pachi, I would like to remind you, back in 2012, the first Test match you didn't play. The team went in with Swan, and then obviously you lost that game. Then you were there with Swan from second Test onwards, and then things changed. So uh, shouldn't England team learn from the mistakes that the past team made?
Well, the difficulty is that India haven't come across a team like 2012 over the last 8 to 9 years. All due respect to the overseas teams, because to win in India, you need 2 batters who can bat, let's say the whole day, and you need a couple of other batters who attack. Now, there's overseas teams coming where some of them, they have 1 or 2 batters who can actually bat well against spin, but they won't score quickly. And you have maybe another batsman who will score good in a session, but not all day. So that's why that team was such a unique team, and it actually challenged, India, because the pace we bowled and on the pitches we bowled. The only trouble, now I think England have is they're thinking, well, the likes of Joss Butler, Ben Stokes can probably play that attacking role, but then we only have 1 batsman in terms of Joe Root, and that's why I thought the inclusion of Joss Butler. Johnny Bairstow in the first 2 Test matches would have strengthened the team. And I think that would have been a better option. Yeah, we got young Ollie Pope, he's coming back and he may do really well, but it's a big ask. You got Ashwin, he's taken 400 Test wickets. He's too clever. He's a smart, astute bowler. He will know how to get these wickets. I personally think they've made the wrong call.
Yeah. I think they've got their priorities wrong, though. The Ashes obsession needs to end. I doubt if they will make workload management and make changes like this when it comes to the Ashes.
Well,
and many are saying, yeah.
That's a very good question, because a lot of people are saying, if it was the first Test match at the Ashes, would you play Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson? I think you would. But the first Test match in India, you probably wouldn't, because that's just a rotation policy. So maybe they are building up towards the Ashes, where they think the Ashes is actually more important for us than the Tour of India, because we probably would ideally like to play both of them if they can. But it's, they're trying to get the most out of these 2 players. I think the England team knows that their batting is young. It's exciting, but if Joe Root never performed that well in Sri Lanka, I think Sri Lanka probably would have won the series. So on spinning pitches, I think England's batting is very one-sided. They rely heavily on Joe Root.
Okay.
I think India also has a lot of part-time spinners as well, which I think would trouble the English batsmen.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. Yeah, look, the likes of Akshay Patel could play. Kuldeep Yadav could be that X factor who bowls, left arm googlies, Chinaman, which England, the batsmen haven't prepared for that. So, if I'm Virat Kohli, I'll be a little bit courageous and think, right, I'm going to play Kuldeep Yadav. Maybe go for like a slightly turning deck, and expect the English batsmen actually struggling against Kuldeep Yadav because they haven't had any preparation against them.
Yeah, but he'll also be under pressure. He's not played a Test match in 2 years. Suddenly out of the team in all formats.
Yeah, that's an interesting dilemma, and that's something they've got to work out. Has he got is his mentality, is his mindset, attitude right, or does he need a few games to get back to his best? If that's the case, then you can't play him. Then you probably have to play Akshay Patel, or you just play 3 spinners. You go with Akshay Patel, Kuldeep Yadav, and Ashwin, which then the workload gets spread a little bit, and they don't have to rely on so much on Ashwin, to win the game.
Yes, and one more question, like I would like to ask. We spoke about this earlier also about the speeds to bowl as a spinner, and like I mentioned earlier, very inexperienced spinners. They played 12 Test matches each, but none of that in India. So, how big a challenge is it for them, and the ideal speed?
Look, I think the ideal speed is bowling it slightly slower, but if the ball is turning, you get good shape on it, then yeah, the quicker you can bowl it with good shape, the better. But I think, Jack Leach doesn't tend to bowl it too quick. His trajectory goes quite flat. So he'll probably look to bowl a bit slower, have an in and out field. And the ball as well. If they get a soft ball, then it's very flat, so it's going to be difficult. But overall, there's a lot of factors throughout this test match. There's going to be the England seamers against the top order batsmen. There's going to be the likes of Vishen Pant, how he gets underneath the skin of the English batsman with his comments. Also, Ashwin, can you stop Joe Root from playing that sweep shot and get him out? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of mini battles going on within both teams. And to be honest, that's what makes this test series so exciting.
Yes, yes, it does.
Perfect. I think I have one question for Bharat. Bharat, so I think
Yeah.
the English team is coming to India, and also the Indian team is here after the Australian series. How does this work? So the COVID pandemic is still not over. How does the bio bubble work? What are the expectations that the players should have in terms of how do they quarantine or do they quarantine? Could you touch upon that?
Yes. So, for example, before playing in Australia, the all the players did a hard quarantine for 14 days, as per the government norms. There, it's very very tough, and it's the same for the Australian Open tennis tournament, which is going to happen very soon. So it's very tough, and the players spoke about it that it was not easy. And then compared to India, obviously, once you complete the quarantine, the life was easier there because obviously things are almost normal there. Not as many cases as we have in India or other parts of the world. Now, obviously, if you look at the time in the bio bubble, it has to take a call because since August till January, all Indian players were in bio bubble, starting from the IPL, and then they took the charter plane to Australia 14 days, and then into the bubble again. And then now they came back after a long tour, 3-4 days with the families, and they're back in another bubble. So they both teams. England came from Sri Lanka, did 6 days of quarantine, and same with the Indian players. 6 days of hard quarantine, and they've got only 3 days before the first test. So yeah, it's challenging times, but it's need of the hour.
Montipachi, what do you think? How would cricketers cope up with such pressure? So I think it's the fact that it's such a big stage, and also then you have to cope up with possibility of these bio bubbles. How do you think cricketers would cope up for such a thing?
I think, yeah, that's the other thing you got to bear in mind because with sport there's a lot of mental health sort of you got to look after the well-being of the players, and sometimes I'm sure the selectors are probably thinking we need to ask about the players. When would they like a break? When would you like to go home and see your young families? So it's easy for us to talk like this and say, oh well, in England should play their strongest team, but we are not in the bubble. We don't know the strains of being in the bubble. So I think it's really important that the well-being of the players takes first priority, and England are probably doing the right call. The reason are they're doing these rotation policies and giving rest to players, it's because there's a lot of cricket to be played, and they've got to say, well, we don't want to be in a position where after a few games or putting so much strain on these players, that actually one of the players is mentally fatigued. So they want to get the best out of the players, get the best out of the 11 they can get, but also the well-being of the player is important.